and then he lay down again. That was the Jayarara Madhava in front of the lecture. And Bhakti-Bhushan Maharaj smiled at me and said, Kirtan. And then he switched to Namaste Narashrindaya. And then some gentlemen attempted to be more insulting, and suddenly our lady appeared in the door, and he said, "Are you all nuts? This is Hare Krishna preachers, you have to listen." And one of these guys, he looked at her and he said, "You shut up too." And she kicked him in the face, straight, full blast as he was lying there. I was going, okay. And Bhakti-Bhushan Maharaj upgraded the Nishinga prayers to another higher level. And we were sitting there in a corner, squeezed, while that lady single-handedly emptied out the whole flat, one after another, kicking them, beating them, dragging on her legs, throwing down the stairs. Everybody was flying. You know, she was just brutal, really, about kicking them in the nose and faces and pulling them out. When the last one was flying down the stairs, she came back and he said, "So, now we can have a program." And she sat down. Well, and then we had a peaceful lecture, you know, with hair, and then somewhere from the background, the later Ekanath appeared. He was not part of these beatings very much. And then, you know, and he appeared, and we sat down and did our little program, ate all the papadams, and went home again. So that was one of the Berlin programs. We had many of these bizarre things going on all the time. You know, that was really a special place. Anyway, so preaching has to go on. But the principle is there. You can notice. If somebody wants to have a chance in Krishna consciousness, it depends on approach, the attitude, which is very difficult to establish in a culture which is not a culture at all. That you see, like how in Indian communities people benefit immediately because they are trained to assume the right attitude. You know, okay, he is the pujari, okay. As Prabhupada said, my attitude towards my spiritual master and his movement was quite simple. I ask only one question: how can I serve you? That's all. And Prabhupada could say so many things, and he knew so many things, and he could argue with so many things. And growing up in India means you get to hear some statements of the Vedas, and Prabhupada grew up with listening to Mahabharata. That was his good night song as a child. Prabhupada said, when we were small children, we assembled in somebody's place, and we were listening to Ramayana and Mahabharata, and then we slept. Went home sleeping, Prabhupada said, and we were dreaming Ramayana and Mahabharata. Sometimes Prabhupada in his lectures, he goes into Mahabharata, you know, just briefly, not much. Oh, you can see how he completely has it all checked out. Because Mahabharata is very complex with the description of the dynasties, and there's lots of names and this. Prabhupada knew all that. So, that's culture. Here, you know, people first open their mouth, and then they think, my God, I said something really important. Maybe I'm genius. Then they say something and they think, and they say, wow, it was even more genius. You know. But actually the process should be quite opposite. First you think, and then you speak. Not first you speak, and then you speak. So it is like, you know, and this is the most essential part, because the rest of Krishna consciousness truly comes almost automatically. It's a question of position of the heart, it's a question of attitude. It's like you want to get brown, then sit in the sun. You cannot sit in the darkness and expect to turn brown, to get the sun tint. It's just you have to put yourself in the right position. You want to get wet, jump in the water. Or you want to get dry, then stand in the sun. You know, it's just a question of how you position yourself. And then everything else comes. Very easily, because we have two sources of how we receive knowledge. By hearing, that's very important, and also there is another help from the heart. Krishna is in the heart, and he can give the knowledge, but he's very careful. Therefore you see, even a devotee receives knowledge through hearing, but his heart is not in order, Krishna will pervert the knowledge. It will be covered. Even you know billions of shlokas and you just go ma. Because the heart is polluted. You have actually an envious intention. Envy can have so many forms. So you have an envious intention, Krishna knows that. And then he doesn't allow you to really understand. Vijnana, realized knowledge. You can hover on some theoretical jnana, but that vijnana is given only to those who are actually honest and sincere in heart. And that test we have to all go through. Krishna is very keen on listening. What do you really want? Well, I want to study Shastra. Okay, for what purpose? I want to be very learned. Why? Well, then I have knowledge. What you are going to use it for? Well, dominate others. Okay, then keep your shlokas in a jar. Stored on a shelf. You will never taste them, you will never understand them. You can have them stored, like in a jar, but you will never be able to taste. That permission is only given to those, because Shastra and Shastra, that's two things. Shastra is the scripture and Shastra is the weapon. So it's a very powerful weapon you are getting. It's like Krishna will give you it's a very physical example, Krishna will give you a big machine gun. And what you're going to do with that? We get it quite quickly in Krishna consciousness on that. You'll be never listened to and never respected to the degree anywhere else in the material world like in Krishna consciousness. Really fast. Oh, he's a devotee. Great. Prabhu, please accept my most humble obeisances. That approach you don't get in the material world. Not like, oh, he's a great worker. Oh, please accept my most humble obeisances. No. You have to work like nuts to get this much respect. And Krishna consciousness comes quite easily actually, because there are not so many devotees, And devotees are trained to respect. So it comes, so when you get kind of machine gun and you think, hey, look at that, boom, oh, great, Krishna is watching. And you know what he's going to do? When you walk around and shoot proudly and aimlessly, he will put blanks inside. You know what blank is? It looks like ammunition, but no, it's a cracker. So you just walk around and Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya and big output. No, it's just blanks. Big noise, some smoke, no impact. This is Krishna's trickery. He knows perfectly well what you want or what we want. And according to that, it's like when you see, Srila Prabhupada said it himself. He said, I was never a writer. I was selling medicine. Then I wrote so many books. Of course, Prabhupada said, I was always a leader. But leader where? In his hometown. In India, well, you can stand on a marketplace and there will be 1,000 people listening to you. You can do such a thing. But I tell you, 1,000 people in India is not much. Another 500,000 will pass you by, not even notice that you are there. So proportionally spoken, you don't do much. There are so many in India. You want to be a big guru? You know how many they have in India? They have billboards, advertisement. Vrindavan is full of it. So what is the outcome? What is the result? In one Srila Prabhupada, presenting Krishna consciousness, you could say in a very pragmatic and very simple form, but so deeply and so purely that it changed people's lives. People just changed their lives. They just changed completely. So much that they couldn't even recognize themselves. What to speak of their relatives and what to speak others, they couldn't know what happened to him. How can somebody change like that? You don't see many changes in people's life much. People live a stereotype lives, pre-programmed by their karma. They don't change much, And you can see even when they go to foreign places, it's called tourism, they don't change much either there. They just sit there. I always remember this German sitting in Gran Canaria in Spain, tourists. And they just sit there and they watch the Spanish people. But they are never becoming Spanish people. They just kind of think, Even better, Germans in Italy, that's really funny. Because Italians are constantly in a drama mood, you know, and they play and they just, they sing, you know. And even my father, you know, he was one of the very privileged ones who could exit the communistic countries, being a known musician, and he was traveling with the whole orchestra to Italy. He came back completely shocked. They were super professional musicians. And the bus driver, you know, who picked them up in a hotel and drove them to the concert hall, was already singing the opera they were playing in the evening. The bus driver. He was driving and he was going, oh, and they were going, hey, he's pretty good, you know. He was a bus driver. In Italy it's like that. Italians, there's a saying that Italians are born to dance. Germans are born to work. You know, so when Germans are on holiday in Italy, they just watch the Italians and they are so envious. Look how relaxed these people are. They're enjoying and eating and and you see these German citizens are just going, who allowed all this? Do they have permission here to be happy like this? German tourists is really something, you know, because they cannot relax. They cannot 1 minute relax. You know, just let it go. No. This is not organized here. This is too spaced out. You know, and Italians are just laughing. The stupid Germans are here. So it's like, you cannot change the nature. You cannot change your karma. You cannot change like that without actually becoming Krishna conscious. And this is what Prabhupada achieved. He really changed people's lives. You know, he made from a completely miserable, introverted, eccentric, arrogant hippies, he made actually humble devotees. At least for a while sometimes. Because when his direct input wasn't there, then everything can be reversed again. Don't worry, we can become demons again. That's, Prabhupada said, some of our members became demons again. You know, because by wrong association, by pollution. That doesn't mean the devotional service goes in vain. But we can any time regress back to some state we came from, or Prabhupada said even worse. We can go below that. Depends on the amount of offense being made. So, that's not, nothing is automatic. Everything in this material world we have to work for. Everything comes for a reason. And Hiranyakashipu, on basis of this status he performed, yes, he found himself in a palace of Indra. But how long? That's the question. You know, you can achieve something, but if it's not sustained by Vishnu, not blessed by Vishnu, it will not be sustained. It will deteriorate very quickly again. So to have a mode of passion may provoke some creation, but then we have to come to a minimum mode of goodness to sustain what was achieved. And that means regulation, and this is what sadhana bhakti is about. Just to provoke mode of passion, a mode of goodness. Because you have to. It's a duty. That's the first thing. Mode of goodness means duty. No up and down, no I feel now like this, and like I said, not coming in like a plow and coming out like a needle. You know, no. Just maintaining steady. This was Prabhupada's greatest struggle, to keep his disciples steady. You can read it in the letters all the time. Always. But I told you, you can do that. Do it steadily. Yeah, but I want this, and I go over here, and I want to do this, and now I will do that, and oh man, this was so difficult to manage. With this youthful passion and this unsteadiness of his disciples. I think this is what took the most energy out of Prabhupada. This constant struggle with keeping things somewhat stabilized. So that's something we can learn from. There's some questions or comments to this.
Were you distributing books in those days in Berlin also?
Huh?
Were you distributing books in those days in Berlin?
Many LPs that were still leftovers of LPs. I was the only distributor. I was the economist, and Bhakti-Bhushan Maharaj was the preacher.
Economist, when you're bringing in the Lakshman.
I was paying even, I can say it on camera, I was paying even for his child. 800 Deutschmarks a month, to be specific. That was the quota. Because he had a child. From a child. It's a complicated story. Because he was quickly, for a very brief period, a grihastha. Preached to and pushed into by his superiors. And if you see the first picture of Bhakti-Bhushan Maharaj, Suchandra Brahmachari, sitting in Hamburg with the devotees, I saw with Prabhupada, yeah, it was a photo. I mean, you see a picture of a 14-year-old boy, more or less. But he was older, but he still looked like 14-year-old boy. Very innocent, in one sense, amazing. Now he is same age like me, more or less. I can tell you, he still looks like boy. He's still amazing.
Yes, his blue eyes.
Yes, his blue eyes and his Hare Krishna. You know, people are completely enchanted. Wow. So yeah. So he was very briefly grihastha. He said, I never saw my wife in sari. I saw my wife only in blue jeans going every evening to the cinema. So there was a child, which must be by now a really grown-up woman. So for that period, when we were preaching, as long as the child is not 18, you have to pay. So I was collecting for that, plus the rent, you know. And the Sunday feast, you cannot imagine how cheap that was. We were every Saturday, whole Berlin, on every little bit bigger square, it's a big town. There's a fruit and vegetable market, which goes from 9 to 1 o'clock, Saturday. And then they start to clean up the place, and that was our time. We arrived on these marketplaces, we had exactly precise addresses, where they clean up, and all this what they couldn't sell, and you know, and half rotten fruit, and this kind of things. Oh, we had boxes of that. We had so much of this. I remember I had an old Citroen, it was packed. And then we cut out the rotten parts and then cooked a big Sunday feast from that. Whereby I was not a cook. I was just chastised by Bhakti-Bhushan Maharaj, by Suchandra Brahmachari, who was just basically let me churning the pot. He was doing the whole cooking. Sunday feast was so intense you cannot imagine. We started to cook, no lecture, nothing, we just do Brahmachari. So we started to cook 8 o'clock and cooked all the way until, I think the start was 3 o'clock or something like this. We cooked all the way through. And then I remember I was still stirring the pot, there was already first people coming in the door. So we just quickly, you know, just jumped in a cupboard, took shower, and then, you know, ran for the feast. And then it was him starting the thing. And basically he was doing most of the preaching. I was doing all the backup. How do you feed 120 people in a flat which is this size? Well, you open the door and put the plates up the staircase, just like this, all the way up to the 4th floor. There was all kinds of, fortunately not a German gentlemen living in that building, mostly from Turkey. And they were like hearing the noise, you know, you have 120 people sitting in a staircase eating prasada. So they open the door, then they got also a plate, you know, and we never had much problem with that. That was our preaching until 3 o'clock in the morning. Then we had something was called the Blackout Monday. We just were completely crashed out. And then we were sitting together and speaking the whole Monday. Who we talk to, you know, what can we talk to him, and who was that, and you know, we had a whole little Ishtagosti about that. Because Bhakti-Bhushan Maharaj was really systematic. He had vowed characters. I remember we had one, you know, he was a huge guy. He was living from making children, that's all. I think he had like 8 children or something like that. And you get money for that. And that was his income. And he had an old Volkswagen bus, and he was always going in the parks, you know, parking the car a little bit outside of Berlin and watching birds with the binoculars. That was his main activity. I remember that Volkswagen bus because whenever we had initially no car, So Bhakti Bhushan Maharaj called him, can we borrow the bus? It's an old Volkswagen bus, and that was our vehicle to go to the individual program. I was wild. And I was basically the whole day on the street distributing LPs, notes on that. I don't remember many books. The book distribution really started when he left for Argentina after 2 years, and I became the temple president for an empty flat.
Was that during Prabhupada's time? That's after Prabhupada's time, isn't it?
Huh?
That's after Prabhupada's time?
That was after Prabhupada. That was after Schluss, that was after all this. Then he left and took sannyas, and then I was in Berlin alone, and the first thing I did, I picked up the phone and called all the Sankirtan parties in Germany. Hey, let's make Berlin to the headquarters. At that time Berlin was divided, east and west. And I think for 1 year or something like that, it was just, I think, 6 or 8 Sankirtan parties in Berlin only. You could distribute Berlin as a town, you can go on the street, 10 o'clock at night, it's full. Non-stop. We had marathons in Berlin. We shifted all the books to Berlin. Much to the amazement of the man who managed the house we rented. It was a big flat. And we carried everything into the flat. Same amount of books we have in our book library here in Copenhagen. Manually, to a 3rd floor, no elevator. When you have 6 Sankirtan bands, no problem. Full of brahmacharis, so we carried it all up. Then the man came, and he was like, all the rooms are full with pallets of books. And he said, boys, do you know how strong the floor is? Are you sure that this is going to last? And he was, boy, we never thought about that. We just carried up the books. And we had already a problem during the Sunday feast, because Bhakti Bhushan Maharaj was really fierce in a kirtan. He got everybody dancing. And when you have 100 people jumping up and down, and he was very proud because it was the 2nd temple we had after that small flat. We got a big flat. And he was very proud that this is just offices. People are not living here. So Sunday, there's nobody here. We can do any damn thing we want. Because during the week it was very quiet. We didn't have even regular programs like during the week. It was all focused on Sunday feast. So he said, oh, it's great. Yeah, he didn't know that underneath was a lawyer's office. And he worked on Sunday too. He was a quite nice guy actually. One Sunday he came, ring the bell, and he said, boys, can you cool it down? Come down and look. And he had, these flats had found gyps decorations, this kind of ornaments going along the corners, and around the chandeliers was a chips kind of, this rosettes, things like this. Well, thanks to the heavy kirtan, this whole rosette from his chandelier came straight down on his table, just long. There's a big pile of gyps right everywhere. So we said, oh, we are really sorry, And he said, it's all right, just can you please clean it up? So we scooping up the gyps in his flat, cleaning up the plates. He was a quite nice guy actually. But otherwise, we had a great time. I don't think it was even allowed to live in that. It was officially in office rooms. It was big rooms and high too. So we could put 2 pallets of books on top of each other. In a flat, with no regret what it could have all come down. Again, instead of the gyps, the man could have a whole pallet of books on his table, with the hole in the ceiling. But we kind of didn't thought about this when you are, you don't think about many things when you are young. I was fierce. It was really fierce. It was Sankirtan day and night. Just marathons were great. You could distribute until midnight. No. Berlin never goes to sleep, except amazingly in the morning. In the morning is a completely tamasic town. Very strange town, because they all sleep from the night. They start to work like 10 o'clock in the morning. So in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning was like... You could only preach And it was only me and Bhakti Bhushana Maharaj who could stay there. We couldn't keep any brahmachari. But when the book distribution was, there was no problem. But the kind of bhakta thing, we had to all send them to West Germany. Because they couldn't stay in Berlin. It was such a brutal central town. They were all...
Ignat, he was, wasn't he a terrorist or something?
Oh, very inclined. I don't think he was professional, but he was
was
very inspired.
He had to leave Germany, but he was, wasn't he?
That I don't know. No. He didn't went that far. But he had all kinds of strange plans on the walls and designs of buildings and, you know, and he was calculating how much Semtex you need to blow this up and this and that. And that I know that he did. But I don't think he went any further beyond that point. But he was a really category on his own. Yeah, that's the kind of people, you know, terrorists use to make the final design. But the lady was even more terroristic. She was unbelievable. I mean, she was just 2 meters high, you know, so it's like this. She committed suicide, I know.
Oh. Never joined?
When he went to Sweden.
She never joined or anything?
Not full time. She tried, but didn't work out. Then he went to Sweden and Harikesh got really hold of him. He was behind all designing the studio and everything. It was all his work. All the studio work. Very far person.
I know.
Far out ahead.
I know.
They were planning how to build UFOs and stuff.
I think they even said one time he started even believe God exists.
Huh?
At one time he even started believing that God exists. You know, it was pretty much of that.
I don't know. It was just a very, you know, thinking that.
But I mean, that's you know, I don't think they never ever really accepted that Krishna exists and like that.
I actually, you know, his initial incoming session was nice. He was very humble. But I lost contact after that. When he went to Sweden, I lost contact after that.
Mm-hmm.
I was still in Germany. Yeah, Harikesh had quite a few people around him. Really eccentric individuals. These days are gone. Now we are on a much more simple platform. We discuss, you know, shall we eat porridge or not and things like that. This is really simple. There's nothing intricate about that. Those days the concepts were really universal, you know. Oh, we'll change the world and change it, you know, it was everybody had a head full of it. How to turn everything upside down. But Krishna was teaching us to, yes, that's a good thing, to change things and change society and think big. Prabhupada said, think big. But when you listen carefully what he said there additionally, he said, but you start small and you build it up. Prabhupada was actually insisting on the development of consciousness. We can only go that far as our consciousness goes. And we are limiting ourselves by our consciousness. That's proven on Sankirtan. If you think 20 books a day is okay, then 20 books is okay. And if you think 200 books a day is okay, then you can also distribute 200 books. It's all in the head. It was proven. I was thinking, first time going 108 books a day, I was thinking, wow. And after me came, you know, Ayanamananda and all these guys, they were doing 600 books a day. What? And they were thinking they are in Maya.